Hey, there's going to be a short excerpt video regarding an interview I just recently came across. Peter Bergen, the award-winning author, who in 1997 was one of the very few people in the world to interview Osama Bin Laden, and wrote a book called "I Know Bin Laden," the Osama Bin Laden I Know. I actually have that book. I haven't read it yet. I actually have it in my nightstand over here. It's a big book. I want to read it too. But he had on the Republican nominee for the presidency, Robert Kennedy Jr., and they talked about 9/11 for a little bit. So it's on the podcast here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play the audio and interject when I feel like it. So let's see what he has to say.
You mentioned 9/11. The official explanation of 9/11 you buy?
Which is what?
Al-Qaeda attacked us on 9/11.
I don't know what happened on 9/11. I mean, I understand.
One thing I don't want to stop right away, but one thing I don't like using is I don't like the official narrative, right? To Peter Bergen, the official narrative is Al-Qaeda attacked the United States. If you ask certain truthers, the official narrative is the World Trade Center is coming down 1, 2, and 7, and that 19 Islamic fundamentalists hated our freedoms and attacked us. That's what they think the official narrative is. I don't think there is one. And the reason why I'm saying that is that the 9/11 Commission report is not final. It's incomplete. And this is the reason why I'm doing the chapter series. People are asking me, why are you reading a chapter series on the joint inquiry, on the 9/11 Commission? Because the truth movement basically just dismisses both reports and they don't read these things. But how do you know what to dismiss and what is true and what is not if you don't read anything? And I always thought this to be quite ridiculous in terms of research and how to conduct investigation. You don't just dismiss something because you don't like it or someone told you that it's false. This is the reason why I'm doing the chapter reading. Is this way you know what is true, what is not, and what's missing. I'm trying to fill in the blanks. So I don't like the whole idea of an official narrative. I just don't think there is one.
And what the official explanation is, I understand that there is dissent. I have not looked into it. I haven't examined it. I'm not a good person to talk to about it.
Well, I mean, so there's doubt in your mind that Al-Qaeda was responsible?
Well, I don't know. I know that there's strange things that happen that don't seem.
What are the strange things?
Well, one of the buildings came down that wasn't hit by a plane. So, it wasn't building 7 or building 10.
That collapsed because.
Now, look, I'm going to give Robert Kennedy Jr. here a pass because, as he just said it, this is not his area of expertise. And I'm pretty sure he's, hearing whispers about World Trade Center 7 because that's the biggest talking point in all of 9/11, unfortunately. To me, it's not a smoking gun. There's no suspects. I mean, you could blame Larry Silverstein all you want. You can't prove that he wired his own building with bombs. You could suspect that he did, but you don't know it. I can show that there was malfeasance in pre-intelligence when it comes to foreign or domestic intelligence services, and I have names to go with it. So we could start from there. You can't go to court saying, hey, World Trade Center came down by explosives. Well, all right, you could show the science to be true. Do we have anybody that placed the bomb? No, you don't. And there's the missing piece. Why don't we go with what we have where we could show that there was pretty much criminality here regarding the intelligence services lying at the 9/11 Commission, lying at the Joint House Inquiry, foreign intelligence, Saudi Arabia and Israel, the latest Canestrel documents which show that there was an illegal operation between Saudi and the CIA intelligence services monitoring Khalid al-Mihdhar, Nawaf al-Hazmi, who hijacked Flight 77, crashed in the Pentagon. Hey, we got names here. And this is not covered by anywhere, not covered by the truth movement, not covered by the media. There's a reason for it.
2 of the world's biggest buildings collapsed on top of it.
No, they didn't collapse on top of it. My offices were down there. My offices were closed.
So one of the buildings next to the Trade Center.
No, there's pictures of it collapsing. There's nothing collapsing on top of it. I mean,
Well, no, not on top of it, but the debris from the North Tower actually crashed into the World Trade Center's South Side. And there are very few pictures showing the South Side where you see this vertical gash that is, I think it was 15 stories long. Where do you think the fires started? There was fires on like 17 floors. I interviewed the fire chief who was in the Office of Emergency Management in the World Trade Center 7, Richard Rotans. He was one of the first chiefs to set up a collapse perimeter, which the BBC rushed to report that, the Solomon Brothers buildings has collapsed because they're getting their word on the ground that the building was in danger of immediate collapse. They set that up in mid-afternoon, well before it collapsed. They saw the damage of fire. Now, if you want to say that bombs or thermite or whatever could have aided into the collapse of the world, hey, I'm with you, because this is not my expertise. Like Robert Kennedy Jr., 9/11 is not his expertise. My expertise is not with physics. Like it won't surprise me if the buildings were wired. I'm not against it either. I just don't know too much. I wish I did. There's one area, it's unfortunate I don't know too much about, but at least I'm willing to admit that I have limitations when it comes to 9/11. And this is one area. But for those who say I'm against it, no, I'm not, actually. I'm not. I've interviewed people like David Chandler, Wayne Costi, and Adam Taylor, and I don't consider them kooks. So, like I said, I wish I knew more about it. But, debris from the North Tower actually hit World Trade Center 7. So did debris from the South Tower. But majority of the damage came from the North Tower.
Hey, listen, I don't want to argue any theories about this because all I've heard is questions. I have no explanation. I have no knowledge of it. But what you're repeating now, I know not to be true.
To clarify, yes, I could have been more precise here. The government's official report found that Building 7 was hit with debris from the North Tower. That impact caused fires, which led to the building collapse. It's very well documented, and there's nothing strange about it.
It's not something that any part of I endorse one way or the other, but I do think that it ought to be permissible in this country to question official narratives.
True. Now, look, let's put it this way. What if World Trade Centers 1, 2, and 7 didn't come down by bombs or pre-planted explosives of thermite? Does that mean that there is no conspiracy involving 9/11? Wrong. There's plenty still. Like I said, it belongs in pre-intelligence. This is how the attacks were allowed to happen and why they were successful. The attacks didn't have to happen. We had the intelligence to stop these people, and we didn't share it with everybody. Why? Now, the only thing we're missing are specifics. The exact dates and times known to the intelligence services before they even happened. And I'm I'll be careful here because I don't like speculating. But if I was to speculate, if you were to ask me, what do I think? I think that the intelligence service like Israel, the NSA, and maybe the Saudis, maybe the CIA, maybe, but very few people knew about specifics. And I think the only people who knew about specifics before the attacks happened were those closest to the hijackers. And, look, I'm not speculating when I say the Israelis were close to hijackers. That's coming from the Gerald Shea memorandum. The Saudis were close to the hijackers. That's coming from the Canestraro files. That's coming from the FBI Operation Encore. Why do you think the State Department is protecting its interests here? Right? And I think very few people knew about specifics. But there's a lot more damaging conspiracy involving before the attacks happened as to when the attacks happened itself on that day.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've spent 3 decades reporting on Al Qaeda and interviewed Bin Laden and spent a lot of my life going around the world reporting.
I know you have. I admire you greatly for that.
But I just on the 9/11 investigation. This was the largest criminal investigation in history. There are 500,000 leads, 170,000 witness interviews. You're not accepting, but that kind of was a...
Don't tell me what I'm accepting or not, because I never said I don't accept it.
Okay, but what are you saying? Because you're saying that you still have...
I have no expertise in it.
You have, okay. But you still have questions about it.
Well, I'm not, I haven't read the data myself. And unfortunately for me, Peter, because it's made my life kind of difficult, is I don't always accept official explanations.
And that was basically it for 9/11. And, I felt bad for Robert Kennedy Jr. here because, as he said right off the bat, this is not his expertise. Bergen actually is one of the leading experts. Like I said, he's one of the very few people in the world to interview Bin Laden. However, it doesn't mean that, that there isn't a conspiracy here. Now, to people like Bergen, I would say that what is his answer regarding, say, the Israelis living in Florida, in Hollywood, Florida, next to Mohammed Atta, Abdulaziz Al-Amari, Ziad Jarrah, and Marwan al-Shahid? What would be his response to the latest Canestrell filings? That the CIA was running an illegal operation inside the United States, using the Saudis to closely monitor Saudi government operatives like Omar al-Bayoumi, Moussad al-Jarrah, Fahad al-Tameri, who were handling Khalid al-Mihdhar and al-Lapazmi inside the United States. And now we're talking, because now we're talking about, the real meat and potatoes here. And I'll get into even deeper with Peter Bergen. What is his response to the NSA monitoring Bin Laden's satellite phones in the mid-90s? Heck, 1992, while he was in the Sudan. The Yemen hub of 1996 to 2001. That's 5 years prior to 9/11. What were they listening to on these phone calls? What was the data? How come we can't see this data? How come no one knows about this? How come we can't get the transcripts to this? That's not a conspiracy. All what I'm saying here is historical fact, right? For Robert Kennedy Jr., he's in quite a bind because he's actually getting pressured by dissidents on the left. The Democrats are saying, well, he's just nothing but a conspiracy, conservative crackpot. And, they're putting him in the same light as Alex Jones and, Glenn Beck. And, I think that's kind of unfair. I mean, he's right in that we should question the government's lack of investigation skills in their selective investigation into 9/11. And it was selective. I mean, we know that's not a conspiracy. I mean, they were only allowed to look at certain information. My whole channel is saturated with the commission critiques. Philip Shannon wrote a great book about the omission report, about what the commission wasn't allowed to investigate. That's not a conspiracy. That's a fact. What about the million-plus documents that's classified? I think it's over 1.4 million documents. I don't know the exact number, but it's over 1 million. 1.5 million. It's almost, a million and a half. We don't know. And then, of course, the Guantanamo 5 and Guantanamo Bay. Do we really know they were the only ones involved? I mean, we tortured the living crap out of them. Well, not we, but the CIA did under the authorization of the Pentagon. There's a lot of questions here. Robert Kennedy Jr. is right. We should be questioning. But the thing is, what kind of questions, right? Look, I'm not saying do not question what happened at the towers. I never said that. It's part of 9/11. And I think we deserve a full, unfettered, unbiased, full disclosure investigation on 9/11, what happened at Ground Zero and what happened before 9/11, more importantly, because that's the smoking gun, right? Now we know. Like I did a video based on an article by Florida Bulldog about there's enough information now, 17 years after the report's releasings. Now we can have a new investigation with the information from Operation Encore and the Canestrell documents. And also, let's add the Gerald Shea memorandum as well, because that's the most important one, right? That's the Israelis. Over 200 people are involved with that investigation, and hardly anyone ever talks about it. In fact, I think I'm the only one doing a chapter reading on the Gerald Shea Memorandum at the moment. We have a lot here now after the report's findings in 2006 that we can warrant another investigation, this time using all the information that we glean now that's undeclassified, showing, hey, wait a minute, there was foreign intelligence services inside the United States that were nearby the hijackers. What did they collect and what did they know? As well as the CIA and the NSA closely monitoring Al-Qaeda in the mid-90s. What did they collect? What did they know? And, you know, we could start from there. But Bergen has a point, but so does Robert Kennedy Jr. He also has a point as well, and he knows his limitations as well. I just wish that people like Vivek Ramaswarmy, a Democrat who's questioning the 9/11 narrative, and that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Republican who's questioning 9/11 narrative, listen to the right people, because we got way too many people who are irresponsible in their investigations and their reporting of God 9/11. It's better now than it was 15 years ago, 10 years ago, but we still have a lot of people who are just, you know, proposing the most ridiculous theories. And I'm more than available to speak with any one of them if they even know I even exist. So, but that's about it. That's a short video. So, guys, have a good night, and I'll see you in the next one.